At least I'm live on Twitch. I don't know if I'm live on YouTube yet. There's always a delay.
Yeah, the YouTube stream. It's a tough one. I just gave up on that one altogether.
Oh, you did?
Mm.
Doing multi-streaming?
Yeah, it always causes one of the streams to fail.
Oh, so I don't have problems with that. I have problems that it just takes forever to start, but I think now we're good.
Then it goes. That's good.
All right, so introduce. For all, I don't think anybody's watching yet, but for those that are watching as a VOD afterward, welcome.
And on YouTube.
And on YouTube. I'm going to assume, I actually had my parents buy a brand new router. So I assume now I have no problems with streams and it won't go down and we're good. So I'm going to take a chance and not actually record the video. I'm just going to broadcast it.
Nice.
And see how that goes. And my laptop's plugged in now, so it won't run out of batteries. So we're good. So if you're watching either in the future or live, welcome. We are myself, Nate, Never Nathaniel, Gabriot, who doesn't have an alias that I'm aware of other than Gabriot, and Night Angel, who is also sometimes. What are you on Discord?
What?
No, wait, it's on YouTube. You're different. On YouTube, you're Let's Play Analysis, right?
Yeah. On YouTube, I'm Let's Play Analysis, and on I think everywhere else, I'm Nine Angel. Yes. Yeah.
Guo Bob on Reddit.
Oh yeah. Bob is my IRL name.
All right, then introduction. So we are going to do another tier list this time. So if you watched last time, we did the champion path tier list. This time it's the Hellhorned card tier list. And we're doing both units and spells, right? So it's
yeah, both. That I guess that's why I have this here. I guess that this only applies to units. You wouldn't really want spells, but
I don't know. Inferno's a thing.
Transcend him.
Transcend him. Yeah. All right. So let's start. Are we doing an alphabetical order? Is that the plan? Or are they just in a random order?
Yeah, it's in alphabet. It's the tier list website. It automatically orders it in alphabetical order. So
okay,
yeah.
And as far as the banner units go, are we factoring in their infusion value or their essence value, I should say, or are we just saying it as a unit?
I would do a separate thing on essences, and I would focus just primarily on the unit itself.
The card, right. Yeah. And I guess we hope to do all the clans in the future. For hopefully.
Cool. So, where do we start? We start with
Alloy of the Ancients.
Alloy of the Ancients.
I feel it's solid. It's not insane. It's one of those cards. It's like, oh, I could use it. I feel like where you're hovering it is like pretty much how I feel about it. I guess this is good in the deck.
Yeah.
It'll protect anything. Frontliner, backliner, has the armor synergies. With Wormkin, it can be pretty insane if you're getting it returned. But often I feel there are better choices at the rare tier. There's a lot of good rares in Hellhorn. So I find myself not picking it that much. It looks like I've picked it 9 times since July, and it's done well. I haven't lost with it, but it's pretty far down the list of pick rate, I should say. So, yeah, I feel solid, but not amazing.
Yeah,
hard to say it's bad.
It has some specific use cases. I think the primary one for me is like low health units that just need some minor protection in the back. So things like Tethys, it's really good with Tethys because you can just play it on Tethys and then he survives a little bit better. It's really good with fragile units. So if you end up putting yeah, fragile, either an essence or I guess or yeah, exactly.
tome.
Yeah, it's a tome.
The tome onto a unit. It's pretty good. I kind of agree. I think it's the other I think problem, and it's a problem with a lot of the single instance of armor cards. I mean, there's some worse ones than this, but uh, damage is just high in general right now. 25 health, effective health is just not a lot.
Right.
But as I said, as a kind of like add-on to existing, it's pretty good. And there are some things I think for me, like the best use case for it is something like you get -2 and remove consume, and then it's a free 50 health or 50 armor spell, which is pretty good.
Right.
But that's very specific, and that's a huge investment. 10 shards or 15 shards plus 110 coins, or 100 it's 105 I think for consumer removal.
Yeah. Average probably I think it's between 90 to 120, or is it 90? It's either
Depending
90,
on
maybe 95 to
90,
120.
yeah, 95 to 120, yeah.
so I kind of think about that. I think it's not going to win you the game. It's not going to save a losing run, but it's a decent card to put in. And the fact that it consumes is pretty good as well.
Mhm.
In some cases, as you said, like in the case of it's a really good card to get back with Wormkin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually like having consume, it's much just better than not having consume, I think. Just because it's like for it to shuffle into the deck, into the discard pile, and then for you to draw it again, it takes most of the time it would just take too many turns, and then by that time you might have already scaled your health up enough that you don't really need the extra 25 armor here. And but on the good side, the fact that it is armor has its I guess benefits, and but also, like, since it's not health, you can't heal, but that's besides the point. And
Probably
yeah.
the one other major use case I would say is it is one of the best cards with Apexim. It's a massive amount of rage at once. So instant, even just like with no artifacts, it's 50 damage extra onto your imp, which is pretty big.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's not really much to talk about.
I think it's good where it's at.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like one of those cards that you would just pick up because it's good by itself, and you don't, like, if you're go up against like the other more niche rare cards like the One Horse Tome that like you might not think you have the capability of protecting, then just pick this up, I guess. Alpha Fiend?
I don't love Alpha Fiend as a unit. I think that if we were evaluating essences, it would bump up, but as a unit, I tend to think maybe the only work in niche combos. It's like if you're desperate for scaling, it can be a form of scaling, but at 3 pip, 2 ember, pretty low stats.
Yeah, I think it's just
It's like you have to find multi-strike pretty much. And even then, it can be too long, right? Go ahead, Night Angel.
Yeah, it's just and the fact that it doesn't have armor or health scaling, it's also you need to find armor or health scaling for it, just to protect it, and it's and you need multi-strike on it, at least one multi-strike, just for it to scale fast enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just slow. It's slow. And it's the other problem with it in general is its scaling isn't guaranteed. because one, it can die, and two, if you don't frontline with it, your other units might just kill the units, and then it doesn't scale. Like it only, it's. I will say though, where it is quite good is very early game. It will dominate most relentless combats, which is quite good.
Right.
But it doesn't hold up when you're talking about Seraph and Divinity.
Yeah.
It just doesn't scale as fast as you need it to.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, like even one multi-strike's not enough. I think you need at least
Right.
2 multi-strike, or you need heavy damage scaling support in order for it to work.
Yeah, it's like usually kind of what you're saying. It's like I'll add it with the intent to infuse it into a unit, but I know that I can add just anything really, like some health, maybe even a large stone, just to get through rings 2 and 3. Usually I would take it if it's paired with something unplayable like a demon fiend or something, and then just hope I get a sweeper or a shadow eater, whatever's good with it. But then the
Yeah.
saddest thing is when you're just stuck with it as a unit. Then you know that run's not going to be fun.
Yeah, compare like this unit with something like the Paraffin Enforcer. The Paraffin Enforcer, like they both have increase both increases the unit's attack by is 5. The Paraffin Enforcer is technically 6.
The whole
And
floor too.
but the Paraffin Enforcer buffs every single burnout unit on that floor, and it's also a 2 space unit. This is a 3 space unit, and it costs 2.
1 cost.
To play the Paraffin Enforcer is 1 cost, so it's just.
I mean, it's not 100% comparable because rage does go away when you die, and you're talking about burnout units where burnout units have a kind of lifespan. But I feel like the barriers to make Paraffin Enforcer are quite low. You have some decent burnout extension, and then you're fine. Where Alpha Fiend, and I don't know what needs to be better. Like I would even say you could change this to strike +5 to all demons, and it would still be better. It'd be good, but it wouldn't be overpowered.
Yeah,
or maybe just even like to all units on the floor.
That I think might get out of hand. Because then what the nice thing about having a demon tag for it is that you would eliminate sweep units. I think pairing it with sweep units gets a little bit crazy because then all you do is get quick and multi-strike, and all of a sudden your sweep units are gaining 10 damage per turn. But I think if it was demons, I think it would be good. Plus, I've been a proponent for this for a long time. I think tags need to be more used than they are. And then imagine, like how fun would it be to do that with Hive Mind, right? So then everything's a demon, so everything gets plus. So anyway, but as it is, I kind of agree. It's even like to say it works in niche combos. It's hard to say like where would it be better than a replacement unit as a I don't know.
I think the niche I would say is that you didn't find any rage, which is rare, but it can happen. And at that point, you just might not have any offensive scaling elsewise.
Yeah, and also like sometimes for sketches, if you pick up sketches of salvation in the first as your first artifact, and then you don't find the demon fiends, or you don't find the consumer crown. Here it is. Yeah,
the two poorest designed units in the game.
Then this guy is like the next largest unit beside those two. Yeah.
So then let's move on. Apexim.
I'll tell you what though, if you guys did want to put it to that green tier, I wouldn't be opposed to it.
I think there are worse units than Alpha Fiend in the game.
Yeah.
I think but it's pretty borderline. It's one of the worst in that category, certainly.
Yeah. We'll keep tagging it to the end of that category.
Apex Imp. So
red.
Apex, yeah. Well, kind of. So the only problem with Apex Imp is it has to have support, but there's a lot of support. Like everything supports it in the deck.
Yeah.
But it needs the support. It can't solo. So I don't necessarily put it in red because I think it won't just roll over. You have to have multi-strike. You have to have something in addition, and you need something to scale it. Like if you don't have any of your armor cards, it's not good. Or if you don't have steel worker, like you need something that's going to grow it. So I
Yeah.
personally don't think it's red. I think it's in that kind of orangish.
Yeah, I get. I get it. Yeah, I guess I do agree. Yeah, it's you do need at least some armor cards. The Steelworker is definitely the best one, and then Water Hoppers and I guess the Alloy of Ancient that we just talked about. Are probably the I guess the best ones to get for it. And
It's also the best user of One Horn's Tome in the game because it naturally needs armor. It scales off of armor, and so you're not worried about fragile nearly as much as you would with others. Important to note, it has complete counter synergy with every other imp. So like in particular, Imperialist, you don't put it on your floor with Imperialist with Shardtail Queen. Very important because it is an imp. But yeah, I mean I think it's a incredibly strong unit and certainly has like in terms of like the ceiling, it can go insane because everything that it has can be doubled. You can double its rage, you can double its armor. When you double its armor, you double its rage. So it's like it's really really strong. But again, like it's still not for me like you don't just auto pick it every single time because you need to have support, and if you don't, it's not a very good unit. Its base stats are not good enough to justify it without any support.
Yeah,
In my opinion.
It's tough because like it's since it's a rare unit, it's like you only get so much instances of playing it, and like I feel like it's always just kind of worked out for me. So it's tough because it's like in my mind I'm like theoretically there should come a situation where I just can't make this work, but it like I just never found it yet.
yeah, it's very rare to not get any armor. I think also there's if you're playing Stygian, with Stygian like at
Armor
all,
incan.
like there is the +2 armor the incan +2 armor in the shops that you can get that can also work. So I think there are a lot of armor choices in the game to make this work, but I know what you're saying, that it's just sometimes if you're very unlucky, then you do get the one of those runs that you just don't get any armor and then you're sad.
Right.
All right, next.
This one's tough for me to evaluate because I know some people do really good with it. I just never seem to. I think it comes down to like how you tend to construct decks. Like I think for me, armor's great, but it's like secondary to rage. I'll always snag rage first if I can. So often I'm just it's like even if I have a deck that has enough armor for this to be good in, I just never end up playing it in a meaningful way. But I've seen, pretty good players like Hart win decks or win runs on the back of this card. So it's like I know it can be good. It's hard for me to give my sign off on it when I just haven't really had good experiences with it.
I think it's
I
one
basically
it's similar to well, not even similar. It's the best of the infinite scaling front burst cards. There's two. It's the better of the two, certainly.
better than Bramble Dash.
I guess there's three because there's also the Melting Remnant one, but we don't talk about that.
That one, yeah, that one. Cool animation.
Yeah, it's but I think it's a lot better because armor out of the three is a lot more useful than the others, so it's a little bit easier. But the biggest problem for me is that it's front unit. If it was anything else, it would be really good. It necessitates piercing, I think, in order to actually be viable. So I think you do like piercing -2,
Yeah.
and then it's really strong at clearing units. And then you get multiple copies to do the combos where you actually can flying kill bosses. But it's so for me, it requires a massive amount of investment, which I don't love to do into spells. To be honest, I don't really like to invest so much into damage spells like that.
Yeah.
But it certainly has a potential to be really good. But I think in general, especially if you get it as a starting card, is pretty crap.
Yeah. Which says something about it too, because it's like you could technically build into it, and I see it in my start, and I never build into it. It's just like this is so much. It's tough to make it work.
Yeah, and you probably need if you're like going sort of all in on this, you need holdover and probably duplicate it.
Yeah.
But I mean, this battering ram compared to something like the Impolate, I think the Impolate does a similar thing. It suggests that the Impolate doesn't do as much damage, but it's
Right.
always just it's still like frontline one-shot damage. But the ceiling, of course, you can get a lot more damage for the battering ram, and but you do need to invest a lot, like -2 cost from the temples, or -2 and holdover, something like that.
Maybe some artifacts or something.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
some artifacts. Like at least probably you need the extra armor artifact, the hammer thing. Don't remember what's it called.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, like I think one of the biggest scares for me is like certain divinity floors are really bad. You have the floor with a bunch of tanks, and they each have 2 spell damage or spell shield.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you do? Like you can't burst through them very easily.
Right.
And maybe it's because at least for me, Hellhorned tends to be very unit oriented. At least that's how I imagine it.
Yeah.
When you have the combo with Stygian, then you get a little bit more value out of it because you get, first off, you get more armor in general with Stygian, plus Hellhorn.
It can work with conduit too, I think.
And then as well, if you get like damage, spell damage Tethys, you can stack up like a few, like you don't have to do a lot, just stack up a little bit. And if you have like Tethys on a floor, or not Tethys on a floor, if you have 2 floors, you have Tethys on one floor, and then you have your steel worker and a couple other things on another floor, you can one shot, but it's super specific.
Yeah.
I think it's if I compare it with Alpha Fiend, I think there's definitely more uses than Alpha Fiend. The one nice thing about Alpha Fiend is that Alpha Fiend won't be in your starting deck, but that's not really a virtue. It's just, so I would say yeah, I think it sits.
Yeah, it's you wouldn't really. I mean, I don't normally pick it unless I know I am going like heavy armor build. Yeah, I guess that's it. And then you won't even get this card until ring 4. So
There's a request on Twitch and YouTube. Can you zoom in so that like the cards are a little bit easier to read? Some people are struggling to read on the screen share, if possible. Yeah, that looks a lot better.
Nice.
is that good?
I'm willing to concede maybe one day battering ram moves up for me. I would have to play around with it more, because there are times when it's like I figure out some consistent strategy and it just completely changes my mind about a card. Like
Yeah,
Legion of Wax, for example. I used to hate it, and now I'm like, okay, you can pretty much
same roll with
nearly
it
always
in
win
certain
with it.
builds.
Yeah.
I can put up the actual like card description on the side, and then maybe that'll work better.
One that we're looking at the time, you mean?
It's like I'll have like a a picture, like a viewer on the side, like, and then I'll have like the card that which card we're talking about, and okay, so we're going on branded warrior.
I lean toward the yellow on this as well. Maybe slightly better than Alpha Fiend. I've technically apparently done pretty well with it as a unit, but I don't really think it's because of it. I'm generally similar to Alpha Fiend. It's like, it's a good infusion, but as a unit, it's kind of unexciting. Like it's you have to be pretty intentional with where you place it and how you build your deck around it if you actually want to get the value out of it. At that point, it basically becomes a Paraffin Enforcer, which is obviously good, but it takes a lot more work, in my opinion, than Paraffin Enforcer to actually get that effect.
It's the problem with Slay in general.
Right.
Especially Slay on a non-sweep unit is a really tall ask. It can't tank either. If it had tankable stats, then you could do something like put spikes on it, or you could get some value there.
Right.
But on a non-tanking unit that is primarily going to be in the back line, and I mean, it's not that you can't get it to hit. You certainly can.
Yeah.
Where I tend to see the most value with it is as a backliner with quick, and the issue currently used to be that you weren't always going to see a lot of tanks, but the Divinity fight, there's a lot of tanks.
Yeah.
And that becomes a little bit problematic. But it's not. It's like against Seraph and against most other floors, if you get quick on it and it's in the back, it's actually really strong. It's really just that Divinity fight that I find it struggles a lot.
Yeah.
The other major struggle too is like, you think about the first wave of Divinity, you have units that start with 70 health. So
sometimes damage shield too.
yeah, sometimes damage shield as well. And so then you can't really play bottom floor because you're not going to get any kills with it.
Right.
Unless you somehow infused it in a way, or you stop starting spells that get you enough rage or damage or whatever. And then even then, and then you can't play top floor because typically it doesn't have enough health. So that's the big takeaway for me. And this is the divisiveness of Divinity. That fight in particular is it completely changes how you have to build if you're going to go for Divinity. Now, if you're not going for Divinity, it's a much better unit, because it's a lot easier to get those kills. Most Seraphites, Seraphites are a little bit tough too, though, because a lot of them start with tanks, right? So you have like,
Okay, so
yeah, man.
Sorry to interrupt. Can I stop the stream and then start it again?
Yeah, you're gonna do like a full screen share so you can do the.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I do like it with Gurg's Goat as well. Kind of makes it into much easier to get those slays.
Yeah. Yeah. So I also think it's just because of the slay. Because it is slay trigger, it suffers the same disadvantage as what we talked about last time with the Hellhorn, the prince. That's it. And do you guys want to put it?
I think it's slightly better than Alpha Fiend because it's one cost and it only takes 2 pip space.
Yeah.
And there's some opportunities to kind of make it work, but I think it's definitely not reliable as a unit.
I should also mention it has neat synergy with the Molting Imp essence. It's not amazing, but it can be okay. Like Burnout 1 and Endless is pretty fun with it.
Okay.
At that point, it still doesn't give you it might give you more rage than a Fledgling Imp on average.
Depends on how many things you kill with it, but
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Branding right. It's the best card to have in Wrathful Prince builds.
Which aren't so great anymore.
It's still good. It's just it's really good with Apexim. Really, really solid with Apexim. It does have some versatility because you can use it to also kill units, although that's typically not why you use it. But especially now that most units have more than 5 health, but like you can do it to that, like during temperate fights and things like that. But
Yeah.
obviously, its main use is just to just gain armor on units, and that way it's not bad.
Yeah, but it's
Um,
not as good again on Apex Imp because you would unless you have some way of buffing the health of the Apex Imp, you can only use this once on it. So it's because it only has 10 health, I think base health. Base health is 10, and then you need some way to buff the health.
Right.
Because
and I think
it's
something being on Apex Imp is not really a build make because it requires Apex Imp, which is another rare card. So thinking about it, like generally, it's the one thing it does have over like what is it, the Alloy of the Ancients, is that it doesn't have
Replayable.
consume. So if you want to have something that can be played over and over again, you have something that does it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't think it's as good as it was before. Used to be a lot better.
Yep. Yeah, I would say it was A tier pre DLC. Now it's like B, maybe C
B
tier.
tier.
Now it's like probably B tier. It is one of those cards that at least I think needs an Ember upgrade, or it's pretty not worth it. 2 Ember, like 2 Ember for 15 armor is kind of meh.
Yeah, it's not definitely not worth it to play without any upgrades. But I think it's still better than Alloy of Ancients.
There are particular units that it's really good with. So it's really, really good with anything that has a revenge trigger. So Cultivate, it's quite strong. With
Frost Shark.
the Titan Sentry, quite strong. So there are opportunities to make it work really well, but yeah, it's kind of tough. I need to mute for a minute. My wife is calling,
alright.
so I'm gonna mute, and then I'll be back in a minute. You guys can keep discussing.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And I guess it's also good in with Awoken, since you can damage your own units, have the armor, and still heal.
Yeah, then you're basically getting the full 20 armor value at that point.
Yeah, without any without any downside to it.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, I think it's pretty comparable to Alloy.
Yeah.
They're almost even. I would say it's you could go either way. I'm fine putting it ahead of Alloy though, especially since it's uncommon. You're more likely to see it, so it's like if it's similar in value, then I think it gets the edge.
Yeah, I think these uncommon cards, they appear they almost always you almost always get the chance to pick them up. It's like I would say 90% of the time you get to see every single uncommon card in the game in every single run.
Right, because it's like rings 4, 5, and 7 is pretty much all mostly uncommons, sometimes rare, but I can't remember what the percent rare is at that point.
Yeah, and also you ring 1 and 2, you get a slight chance of getting uncommon as well.
Right.
Oh,
and
and
the
rare
in the opener too.
and rare too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposedly ring 1 and 2 is really rare to see a rare, but I see them somewhat often, so I'm getting some pretty good luck some of the times. I think it's like 1% is the rare chance in those rings.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think kind of like what you and Nate were saying, like before the DLC, you could kill every backliner in the game with this card branding right, other than Purifier. Regardless of trials, regardless of anything, you could just kill every backliner, and now you can't. It's like in the Divinity fight, you can't kill a single unit with this. So I think it offensively it lost basically most of its value. It's like early game, it'll still kill some stuff, but even then, even like a sharded up Quill Hunter, I don't think it kills. So it's like it loses its offensive value pretty quick, which I think gave it probably one of the biggest hits in terms of value.
Yeah, but I guess I mean most of the time you wouldn't really use it for offensive. But I guess the option to use it for offensive does make it better. Yeah. Next, Consumer of
right.
Crowns.
I'm back.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, okay. Well, we're just moving on to the next one.
No, that's good. I think we said branding right where I would put it, so that's great.
Yeah. Well, this one's clearly red. Red
Yeah,
for
it's
how
really
angry
OP.
it makes me. That its existence in the game.
Yes.
I hate it on all accounts.
It's interesting because even with Consumer of Crowns, it's still not that great. Or sorry, let me say that again. Even
Maybe
with
if you play it.
no. Sorry, what I meant to say is even if you have what the freak is it called? The relic we already talked about, or the artifact we already talked about. The sketches is still not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People dies.
Yeah.
It's not that it's not even terrible. Like stat wise, it's way better than a lot of the Hellhorned units. Like compared with like Apexim, it's like just completely blows it away. The problem is that the build that you want to play it in, imp builds, don't need it. Imp builds are just good with whatever. Like you just need units. And especially you don't want in imp builds, you don't want 3 capacity units because they take up all the space you want for your imps to be able to play them to get more value out of your imps. I don't know what needs to be done to make it better, but I don't like it.
I've seen some posts on Reddit that says that you can just make this not a banner unit, and then like you don't draw it first thing, and then maybe it'll because you can draw your imps to play your imps, and then they survive, I guess, and then you play this card. But it's
You know what I would do? I would change this to rather than be minus Ember cost, I would do something more along the lines of like the what is it called? The kin host, where you play it with imps. You play it with imps and you get a bonus for every imp that's on the floor. That would be cool.
I think hopefully I'm not wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure Rising Dusk, he has that balance mod, and I think that's how he treats this card, which makes sense, right? Now it's playable. You have the same synergy applies, but you don't get these horrible situations where it's like if you get stuck ring 2 with Demon Fiend and Consumer of Crowns, it's just you literally can't play these units, especially if you have no imps and no Ember. You literally have 2 units that you can't play. It's a
lot of hurdles, and then even when you play it, it doesn't win you. It's not like Shadow Siege. Shadow Siege, if you can play Shadow Siege, it will win you most combats because it's just so freaking huge.
And Shadow Siege actually has an okay essence, unlike Consumer, where it's like outside of Lodestone, what would you ever use Consumer's essence on, right?
Yeah, and why would you do Consumer's essence when you could just do the imp essence and it's so much easier to get and to play? So I completely agree. I think it needs to be reworked. I think there's a lot of different ways you could rework it. As I said, I think I would go for more of that type of thing. Yeah, I don't know, or have it be that it benefits from having imps on the floor, something like that. That where it's like you still have the synergy, but the synergy is, what would be interesting. So this is like completely off topic. It's interesting is if there was a synergy of keeping your imps out, because currently everything's all around like imps dying. Like I think it would be cool if you could do something where imps staying alive actually has value. Like a resolve trigger where at the end of turn, for every imp that's on the floor, you get a thing. Like that would be cool. And create a brand new archetype about keeping imps alive on the floor.
Yeah.
I think could be interesting.
for sure. Yeah, I think either consumer or even, I'd hate to say it, even Apex Imp, because I feel Apex Imp is so broken. Like
Yeah.
when it gets, it's like if it were having specific imp synergies, uh, you'd have to figure out a way to keep these imps in play. It's a little bit more strategy than just, oh, I'm going to slap down a few things and now this unit has a million stats and I win the game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also like right now, it's everyone's looking for endless on fledgling imp or transcend imp. It's it would be like really interesting to have like multi strike on the imps. If like
Yeah.
if they are, if you want them to survive, then you can actually put multi strike, put like maybe large stone,
Yeah.
maybe quick on the
Like,
imps. Like instead of it just being limited to simply endless, and you're just looking for endless on the imps, and that's it.
Currently as it stands, yeah, F
Yeah.
tier.
All right. Dark Deal.
I like Dark Deal. I think it's really strong.
yeah, I like it. Dare I say, I think I've used it less in the DLC than I did prior. It was like pretty much auto pick for me prior. I think similar to Branding Right, it lost its ability to kill enemies,
Yeah.
which
Oops.
kind of put it down, but still 0 Ember for Rage 7 is not a bad deal at all. I mean, that's pretty good value. 14 damage for 0 Ember. Sign me up. It can be double stack. It's another one where you don't have to upgrade it. Like I really like Ritual, but you have to upgrade it really. Dark Deal you don't have to upgrade, but it likes upgrades. Almost every upgrade works with it. Holdover, double stack, even a spell chain. As long as you have
Plus
the health.
20 and
Yeah, and
plus 20 and
also
consume. No.
Oh yeah.
yeah, and also like because Hellhorn has the armor, this doesn't have piercing on it, so you can just stack the armor up and then you just deal damage to the armor, and 5 damage to your armor isn't a lot, and you get your 7 rage or double stack. You can even do like double stack -1, and then you still have your 0 cost, and then you have 14 rage instead of 7.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think it's really good. I think it could use I'm not even sure what would be the way to improve it.
I don't even know if it necessarily needs improvement. I feel like it's a pretty well balanced card. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel OP, but
Yeah,
it
and
also doesn't
it's
feel weak.
also it's
Maybe
rare.
that's what I think. It needs to be. Yeah. Maybe it's more that it needs to be other things need to be maybe brought down. I think in particular, fledgling imps a little bit high right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah,
and
it's
that's
pretty
probably
OP.
what makes it tough is the alternatives are better in some ways.
Right.
But no, I think it's still really good, and I think again, it has less synergy with Branding Right with a lot of the revenge units because Branding Right you're gaining sustain, and oftentimes the revenge units want sustain; they don't want raw damage. But even then, it's still not terrible. Like you can put it on a you can use it to hit your Titan Sentry, you can use it to hit your Cultivate unit, and it's not terrible.
You can sacrifice
But I would say
it.
primarily you're using it for your backliner.
Right.
Sweep, it's really good. I mean, it's similar to adding rage to any unit.
Yeah. I also like that it's at the rare tier because you have, if you did miss on Fledgling or Ritual early, you have a great card that's still there. With a lot of other clans, like their offensive scaling is completely at the common tier. Like Awoken, for example, if you didn't hit on Razor Sharp Edge past rank 3, you are completely reliant on the other clan now because there's just nothing in the Awoken other than some, maybe spikes builds or something like that. But I think it really makes, I think that's one of the biggest strengths of Hellhorned is that at any point in the game, you have options that you can find.
For armor and for rage. Like there's
Exactly.
always something.
Right. And even overstacking, even Tiresome Climb, you can still overstack your floor, even though it's better used offensively, but it's an option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
Right.
say I think it's
Yeah.
better than Branding Right. I think it's
Mhm.
probably better than Alloy, but I wouldn't put it as a necessarily important part of a combo. I just think it's good
Right.
to
Yeah,
add
I
to any
think
deck.
Just a
I think
nice
we can
solid
just
card.
put this in the front here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Demon Friend.
The other greatly designed card.
Um,
I hate this card.
All right. Here's the other one. The other big
I actually
card.
have been liking its essence more and more, but as a unit, I
It's a
don't like
decent
it.
essence. Yeah, it has a better essence than it's a usable essence.
Wait, what is its essence?
It's better
30,
large stone.
right, 30
Oh,
30 in
okay.
a pip. So pretty good damage.
It's really good with stuff like sweeps and
Yeah, Animus
Animus
of
of
Will,
Will and
yeah,
stuff like that. But
Dante, Eel Gorgon. Even Horned Warrior, it's not too bad on.
right. Um, but it probably as a standalone, certainly the barrier is lower than Consumer of Crowns. You can, I mean, if you're really desperate, you can just take an Ember and then by ring 4, you can play it outright turn 1.
Yeah,
I don't think it's worth taking an Ember 4.
and it's I guess it's a beginner trap, as I think everyone have said before, and yeah, it's people will see that it's 50-50. It seems like a very large stat, but it's doesn't have any text, which is bad, and
Right.
also for cost, it's
I mean,
not
I find it
unplayable.
interesting. I find it interesting because how many units in the game have no text? Used to be Hellhorned had,
Had a lot.
it had,
A lot.
yeah,
Horned Warrior and
Horned Warrior and,
guess it was just
but
Horned
Horned Warrior
Warrior.
got text. Demon Fiend
Right.
did not get text.
Yeah.
Is there any other unit in any other clan that doesn't have text?
Shadow Siege, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Shadow Siege has
Has that.
text, massive stat bomb.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
I think it needs text. I don't know what text it should have, but it should have text of some kind, or it should be reduced to 3 cost.
Maybe just multi-strike 1, like Horned Warrior down here.
I don't like it. I think should do something more unique.
Yeah.
I'd seen a decent suggestion that somebody said make it 3 Ember, but 1 Ember Drain just on summon. So it's like it's still technically 4 Ember, but it's playable.
I think just make it 3 Ember. I don't think the stats justify 4 Ember cost.
But
Yeah.
it's
In my opinion.
it's still weak, even if it's 3 Ember and
Yeah, but the for me though, I would take it at 3 Ember because
it's
then you're not
playable.
having to invest in a card or invest in an artifact or invest in another way to play it.
Yeah.
If it was playable, you could work around this. Giving this thing like 2 multi-strike, like it's one of the big problems with a lot of the units you want multi-strike on is that they don't have early scaling, they have long-term scaling. Having a 50 damage unit at the beginning with multi-strike is actually really strong. But if you have to get multi-strike on it and you have to find a way to play it, then it becomes a lot of hoops. And removing that one hoop, I think, would actually make it. I wouldn't make it good. It would make it better than Consumer of Crowns. It would make it on par with like Alpha Fiend, maybe even better than Alpha Fiend.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
it will be better than Alpha Fiend because Alpha Fiend just scales. Alpha Fiend starts at just too low of an attack value, and this 50-50, it's still like you start off with 50 attack, which is actually just a lot.
2 people suggested Trample. My only issue with Trample is I don't think it fits the flavor. There's nothing else Trample in Hellhorned. So while I think it would be an interesting text, I think it's in the wrong clan. What would be... We have a lot of armor stuff. You have Steelworker, you have
Rail Beater.
Rail Beater, Apex Imp,
Welder Helper.
Welder Helper. So you have a lot of like armor related stuff. Rage, you have Fledgling Imp, and you have Branded Warrior, and you have
Ritual.
Ritual.
well, no, what's his name? The Deranged Brute.
Oh right, yeah, Deranged Brute.
Right, yeah.
He's pretty legit.
And then multi-strike, you have just Horned Warrior. What other types of text are there? Demon Fiend. You know what would be cool? Gain multi-strike for each demon on the floor.
Mm.
And then you like have a legitimate overstacking strategy.
Yeah.
Don't increase its cost. Have it be you play one or two demons on the floor, and it just gains multi-strike for each demon. I think that'd be cool.
But then you would always have to play it with a overstack floor.
Yeah. I mean, but it creates a build. Overstacked floors right now, you don't do with Hellhorn because imp builds are so much better. Like I say that you can do overstack builds. Like there's still some cases where it's strong, but the biggest drawback of overstack builds now is that imps, you basically have to not have imps, which is terrible because imps are so freaking good right now. So I think like being able to re-enable the overstacked floor concept with something like that would be really cool. Yeah, I
Yes.
mean,
I think at any rate, no matter what is done to it, I just hate that it's uncommon and unplayable in the early
Yeah.
game. Like as long as that portion is fixed, I almost don't even care what gets done with it. I'm like, I just hate having an uncommon banner unit that can't be played.
Yeah, maybe
outside of,
like they change it to
Umbra or something.
rare and then have that text that you said, Nate.
Yeah, even putting it at rare, making it have that, because then you'd be pretty unlikely to get consumer and it. And maybe Apex Imp drops to uncommon and has that imp synergy where it's no longer a carry unit itself. It's there to like make its, I mean, it's an Apex Imp,
Yeah.
right? It needs to buff up all the other imps.
Or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think, to be honest, I think that Hellhorn could use a kind of pass over in terms of what is this clan gonna do? Like, it's really strong. It's really strong, but it feels like it's strong in all the ways that you don't expect. Its best units are not actually its best units. Its common and uncommon units are like insanely strong. Its rare unit, except for Apex Imp, its rare units like okay, we're gonna come up to Deranged Brute. Even Deranged Brute, I mean, I guess no, Deranged Brute's still pretty good. Maybe we talk about it now.
Good.
Yeah.
I think it used to be the single-handed like best unit in the clan, but I don't think it is anymore.
Which wasn't saying much.
No.
They used to have
It
some
was
bad
it was the good card in the clan. Like
Right.
it's what made Wrathful Prince so good. It's what made a lot of the rage oriented stuff just so strong. I would say it's slightly above average now.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
Deranged Brute, I would say I would almost put it in red personally.
Yeah, that's what I think also.
It's similar to Apex where it's like true there is theoretically times you don't find rage. I've had it happen, but like I feel like most of the time you're gonna have rage, and if you do, this unit just, if you can find a quick on anything, even if it's not the brute itself, like a sweeper or something, you've basically won at that point. Like you don't even need a good rage card. You could survive off an Inflame at that point, because now an Inflame is doing more than a ritual basically would normally. So it's like, I think it's pretty crazy. When you first add it is probably when it's at its potentially weakest, because that's the rings where you might not have had your rage yet. Even if you have it, depending on your RNG, like you might draw it in the right order. Especially if you're facing like haste ring 2 or something, it can catch you by surprise there.
My current issue with it is it suffers the same way that Predator Wildington does, which is that the moment it dies, everything loses its effect. And I think there's a little bit of a problem because it doesn't have tank stats. It's pretty weak. It dies, especially now, it dies really quickly. And the moment it dies, you're lost all your rage benefits. Which is oftentimes like when you're looking at end calculations and you're like, how the heck are my units doing so little damage when I have a deranged brute and a bunch of rage? It's because your deranged brute's dying and it's dropping off damage.
Right.
So what saves it is that again, there's a lot of like chump blocking you can do because of imps, but I would still say that the level of damage for me has made it difficult to play in comparison. It's really good if you get like Steelworker Essence on it because then it has some kind of self-sustaining.
Right.
Or if you have like I don't know some of the better artifacts like Days on Top Floor or things like that, then you can kind of run with it. Yeah, I mean, I do think it's really good. I don't think it's as consistent. I mean, what do your stats show? How often do you see it?
So since July, I've only seen it 6 times, but I haven't lost with it. So 6-0 with it. So it's not like always showing up that much. But I think with it, I tend to actually overstack, and I think that can often because you can get one thing with brute is its effect stacks with each other, so you can get 2 brutes on a floor.
Yeah.
I think quick becomes super good at that point. Like even a brute itself with quick, you could hellvent it 2-3 times. Now even if you didn't find multi strike, 3 units are guaranteed dead pretty much.
Yeah.
It's tough because it's similar to Apexim though. It's like you don't see it that much, so it's like there is enough variance in the game that even though I did go 6-0 with it in that period, I could have had a run where it doesn't work well, right? It's really tough for me to evaluate these rares in that sense.
You just don't see them a lot.
You don't see them a lot. Yeah, it's like uh, if I could get a sample size of 20 games or so, and then maybe I get a better idea. Now I because a lot of these units you have like that 1 or 2 times where you have just such a nightmare run with it that it lowers your value of the card, right? Like that happened to me with what was that recently? I think Alloy. Like I was pretty high on Alloy, and I've had a few bad runs with Alloy, and I'm like, man, I don't know if Alloy's that good anymore.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's tough.
yeah, I think
This is
because it's because you can stack 2 of them on the same floor, and still play your fledgling imp and still play your imps in front as trump blockers. I think it's worth it, in my opinion, to put it up on the red.
I think it's probably not as good as Apexim, but I would put it on that same area. That's fine.
Okay. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
it's fine. Yeah.
I feel like we would want Apex and Brute on the same level to be consistent because they have the same kind of thing. It's like, the 2
If you have
big
the support, they're
things
just really good.
right, exactly.
Okay, so then next up is Inflame. It is the second worst spell in Hellhorned.
I don't love it. I've been forced to use it. Like you can make it work, which is more than I
-2
can
is not
say.
bad.
Yeah, -2, double stack it. It's a lot to invest just to get 8 rage and 10 armor, but 8 rage and 10 armor, you can make that basically be what you need. I rarely find the armor portion is relevant.
Yeah.
Usually it's like I didn't find rage and now I have to use Inflame as my rage. And it's sad, but at least it kind of works. Like I'm hesitant to put it in green just because it's workable. Unlike I feel like a lot of other clans just have some of these spells where it's so hard to make them do anything. Like Inflame, it's bad. I would never say it's good. I would never even say it's okay. But it's workable.
Yeah,
it's 8 damage.
it's like a the backup plan.
Right,
If you don't find any rage, or armor, the 5
Sometimes
armor, it's very sad, but it's like the backup plan. And then you before, when double stack didn't cost the extra ember, it was pretty was like okay, pretty good.
Right.
But now it's you need at least the -2 cost, and then double stack, I guess. But it's just
I actually
it's
think I
bad.
don't. I almost don't prefer to double stack it. I almost prefer it being 0 cost, just to have it -2, and then just play it for free. I mean, it's
Hold
obviously
it
better
over at
than
that point. Yeah.
Yeah, and
The
also
other thing I think.
oh,
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, sure. And also the thing is that like, if for the unit, if you want to put down a unit that for the rage portion, if you would probably put it on a backliner unit, and then you normally that backliner unit don't need extra armor. So the armor is normally just wasted. But if you need your front line to survive, the extra 4 rage on your front line, which is only doing like 1 hit or something, or even have like in the cases of the sharks, like they don't really do any damage themselves, and the extra rage is just not really used. So it's a like kind of a there's a like debate there. I guess there's a
It's like negative synergy with itself, because
negative
it's an
yeah,
offensive and defensive, and you
couldn't
want
find my
to.
words. Sorry.
Right.
So what was it's similar to like branding right, which Inflame was a lot better when Wrathful Prince was the king of Hellhorned,
Yeah.
and because again you had one unit you can play both onto. In a lot of ways, it's similar to the same problem with Sharpen and Awoken. It's the same issue, is that you want spikes on your front unit, you want damage on your back unit, and it's in both. And so who do you play it on? And again, that was another card that's really good with Wrathful Prince. But anyway, it's it's this struggle of like, where do you use it? That's why it's for me, like having it be 0 cost. And then I usually just play it on the back line, don't worry about it. Like that's typically my use of it.
Right.
I think it could be buffed to, if you really want to keep this where they're going to be together, you go 5 and 8, and I think it's a little bit more reasonable.
I think it can
The
just be
fact that
1 cost, and keep
that
this
also the only thing I don't like about the 1 cost is I guess that's not terrible. Then you could just do double stack and -2. But I don't think it's the cost that's the problem. I think it's
the impact.
Yeah, it's a card that you had to draw, which means you didn't draw other cards. And is drawing that card for its benefit worth it, irregardless of the stat cost?
Yeah.
Certainly at 2 cost, it's bad. At 1 cost, would it make it good? I don't think it would make it good. I think it would make it average.
fair. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a fair card.
So, and if that's what it needs to be, then I think that's fine. It's certainly there are a lot better cards to put -2 onto than Inflame.
Yeah. Especially in the Hellhorned arsenal.
But more and more, I'm of the opinion that like Ember cost, while important, Ember cost is most important in the first 3 rings and becomes significantly less important later on, and draw opportunity cost becomes way more important late game. And so it's tough. Like there's no way to reduce the draw opportunity cost of a card that only has so much benefit. So
yeah, as I play this game more, it's the opportunity cost of drawing this card versus drawing like another card that may be just much better. It's just way more important than like Ember or Space.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So keep it in yellow is fine with me.
Yeah. Teetering between green and yellow, I feel.
Yeah.
Fledgling Imp.
Now this card needs to be nerfed.
It's, it's really good.
It's,
I think I don't have it here, but I have the I still have the other the pre buffed Fledgling Imp here somewhere. I think it used to be like
Free rage.
Yeah.
Free rage.
I think it'd be
which it
balanced
should be.
at
It needs
3.
to go back to 3. It needs
Right.
to go back to 3.
Right. Because right
Yeah.
now it's literally every
It's
time
too
I've
good.
skipped it, I every time I skip it, I'm like, well, I should have just picked it because it would have just
Would
won
have
me the
saved all the
spam.
problems. Yeah.
Yep. Every time you want to diverge, it's like, well, this run would have been a million times easier with just fledgling him. It's nice because it's like you find it early, right? And you usually, at least I think I'm similar to you guys in this, where it's like I like to target those early Merchant of Steels, and now you have an additional big upgrade that wins you the game, and you don't rely just on finding multi-strike now or quick. Rarely would you be searching for large stone that much, but now you have endless as an option to basically win you the game because an early endless fledgling your whole offensive game plan is now solved. You don't need anything else.
And even possibly your defensive. It's semi-defensive because you were just it's a chump blocker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've surprisingly put a lot of plus 25s on it just because I know it's going to die every turn anyway. You just put plus 25 and it absorbs.
The damage shield one is actually, it hard counters patient too. I've noticed that. Like you basically it can't trample through you, and then it just hopefully you have some way to imp Shard Tail Queen or something to help it die anyway.
But afterward,
right.
Or burnout.
Burnouts, yeah, burnout's great. Yeah. Melting.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I would put it in red personally. I mean, to me, if there are units that fit the mold of red,
like pure red,
like it's like offensively at least, and like we've said, even defensively potentially, it solves everything, and it almost doesn't matter what you have on the floor. Even if they don't have multi-strike, you could figure something out. Like you just, whatever units are on the floor, they're gonna have so much damage. You can self-infuse it to get 10 rage a turn. True, you might not find endless, but I find that you can still make that work. Obviously melting has no problem with that, but even outside of melting, you can still hellvent it, hit every hellvent. And if it's self-infused, that's going to be, you're guaranteed at least 3 hellvents. That's going to be 30 rage to your entire floor. Like that's a lot of rage. And if it's your only source of rage, I don't know, like generally you're going to find something else too. Like we said, there's Dark Deal, there's Inflame, there's other things that you can add.
And the benefit here as well is like with multi-strike, you want like a lot of it. You want more than one. You literally just need an endless. And if you're like insanely desperate, you can do an essence. So there are 2 endless Transcendent or Votavary.
Yeah.
So
or even just if I found a Transcendent and I had a few fledgling imps, I'd be tempted just not even to put it on endless still. Because then I can basically, like we said, it's like the game is so like fast where it's like I would just want to put them down, and then even if I don't draw it in the right order, second cycle through the deck, I just play the Transcendent and then get 60 rage or whatever, or 30 rage or whatever. And at that point I have 60 rage on the whole floor, which is generally enough to beat the game. It's 120 damage per unit.
It's also the if you open a box, that's typically what you want out of the box.
Yep.
So I don't know. I think it needs to be toned down. I think it's still really good. I think it needs if you look at like rage across the board, fledgling can go down to 3, and it's still incredibly strong. You're still oftentimes getting anywhere from 9 to 15 rage.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate that. Also, it gives rage to itself, which sometimes is relevant. It's not always, but sometimes it's relevant.
Oh yeah.
And then and then all the rest could be buffed. And I would actually keep their Ember values all the same, buff the rage values. It's we're gonna come up to it in some time. The fact that there is a consume spell that only gives 3 rage and this gives 5 rage is absolutely insane. So
Yeah.
I think all the rage needs to be I think the spells, apart from one, need to be buffed, and then Floating Up could be toned down, and it would still be, the clan would still be fine.
And maybe, you could keep maybe the essence same, because it seems like with the imps, their idea is that the essences should have better effects than their innate or their like unit effect. So
Yeah,
if it was like
that's true.
range 3 just for imp, like, and then maybe 5
I would
for the
actually
essence.
do summon rage 20. That's what I would do, not for the floor,
Oh,
for the
just on
unit.
itself. Yeah.
Or maybe not 20,
Interesting.
maybe 10.
Yeah.
Summon rage 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
But that would just apply to itself, right?
Yep. But then it would also apply to anything else. Like you could also get massive transcendence that way.
Oh yeah.
So you could have a transcendent that you repeat over and over again, and it summons itself with 150 rage, which would be kind of fun. It would create, I think, again, creating new archetypes. I
Imp
think
archetype,
like
Yeah.
a transcendent that doesn't die, a transcendent that
floor of imps.
yes. So I don't know. I think because you think about like Welder Helper is a completely different thing. It does it to the whole
Right.
floor, and it gains armor on itself. I think
Yeah.
you could do something with rage that would make it interesting, apart from just giving rage to the whole floor.
Yeah.
Would be my thought. But anyway,
Yeah, it's just it's crazy.
very, very, very strong though.
Very strong. Very strong. And I guess we're up for one of weaker card.
Fortify, it's fine. Only because it's 0 cost.
I think it's just not it's not that fine because it like instead of drawing Fortify, you might want to like draw something else. That it's it as we said before, like the opportunity cost of drawing Fortify, it might be too high.
The only thing with Fortify that's nice is it requires 0 investment. There's no reason to ever put a buff or a stone on this card. It just is what it is. And where it's actually okay is in incant and if it's infused. If you have either of those, I actually really like it because you don't have to invest anything, and it just is a free incant and a free infusion whenever you want, or an inspire effect whenever you want. Outside of that, it's pretty mediocre.
Yeah, I would say it's my least favorite common for this clan. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, Nate. Like I do like an incant and inspire because it fits the bill. It's a free incant and inspire, and maybe that armor can help in some cases. But like also kind of to your point, Night Angel, it's just so low impact that the cost of drawing the card, it's like I think the fact that it's so low impact and the fact that it's only defense that it provides is tough because I've generally thought in the DLC specifically that offense is just so much more useful than defense. That it's just tough because it's like putting, you stack 5 armor, even if you're getting that each turn, it's like it might not do much for you. It's not going to really help clear the waves, prevent your pyre from getting hit. Yeah, I guess I don't value Fortify too much. It's pretty similar to Inflame for me, I would say.
Yeah, it's I think it's just now that enemies they do 70 to 100 damage, like in the Temperament fight and the last Unity fights. The 5 extra armor. It's just not very. I mean, do you really want this card versus like you, for example, you draw like your Alloy of Vengeance that gives you 25 armor instead, and then that one extra turn early, like you drawing the card one extra turn early might just save you the game, save your units, and
it's another similar to Welder Help or something we talked about with Rage. I think they're the units that do armor stuff do too much, and the spells that do armor stuff do too little.
Yeah.
I mean, think about this is Steelworker's Resolve Trigger. It costs no draw. It's just his resolve, and by the way, it does it for the whole floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At no cost to draw and no cost to anything.
Yeah, it's a 1-cost unit that does this spell every turn to everybody on the floor for free. And it's just like this is the thing with Hellhorned again. It's got some pretty good spells, but it's got some insane essences and some really strong units. And that's where it's so over the top. And I think that's where the balance needs to lie is there are particular builds that are so much better. Like you just take Fledgling up every time. You take Transcend up every time. You take Welder Helper every time because they're so much better than any of the other spells in the deck. And I think that needs to be somehow tweaked.
Compared to anything like all the other common cards that you would get alongside this Fortify, like why would you pick Fortify over like any other common? I think other commons were coming up on Hidden Passage, Hornbreak. What else? Like all the Imps.
Vent.
Yeah, Vent. Just nice.
Vent, yeah.
I'd rather just prevent the 20 damage coming in than add 5 defense.
Yeah.
So let's maybe we can do some, just for time's sake, because we're very long-winded. Let's do keep this in the bad spot. Let's do both Ascent cards together.
Yeah, sure.